Pictures hold narratives. When you look at a photograph, a black and white photograph in particular, it feels static. And if you can learn who the people are in the picture and then identify the different environment pieces, the picture comes alive and you can almost step into it. So by going to the Navajo Nation Fair and putting up our 85 photographs that have many different Navajo who we have no identity for, we learn not only who many of these people might be, but we also heard a lot about the historic context for how different things were done in the past in terms of daily life for the Navajo. It was our first public outreach, and we didn't know if we would even get anyone to identify people, and certainly didn't anticipate the level to which people were interested in the historic value of the pictures themselves. And we in fact got many identifications, and because we were traveling and doing the booth with the Little Salt family, whose descendant, Max Little Salt, was one of the main Navajo guides and interpreters, they were able to talk with a lot of people about family members and many who came from the area of the expedition, and brought so many identifications to what we had started with, which was unknown people and their stories.
Younger kids don't really know what happened in the past out here. They really don't have a clue when it comes to, you know, these expeditions that were coming through, these people collecting data and taking things and taking photographs of people, and really becoming part of the community for months at a time sometimes, and then coming back repeatedly for years, and then vanishing, never to be heard from again, you know. So, and you have that older generation that interacted with these guys, and then you have their kids that might know about it, and then you have the generation that we have now that is absolutely clueless, absolutely clueless. So I think it's really important for folks to get an idea of what was going on, but even more importantly is identification of folks in the photographs. You know, and you know, I think just in Native America for so long that the idea that Native Americans were supposed to disappear. They were supposed to assimilate into Western culture and then eventually just kind of fade away in history. So they would just be a footnote in somebody's history book, basically.
My kids, they're not going to experience the lifestyle that I went through. My generation is probably going to be the last to kind of go through what those pictures kind of go through and relate to it and have a really personal feel behind it.
I met Derek in the booth at the Navajo Fair, and he was explaining to a couple of his children what he was seeing in the photographs. And when I introduced myself, he immediately began to tell me how important this project was that we were doing for the fair, putting out photographs for people to look at, not only for the identification, but because many family groups traveled together with 3 or 4 generations together, the older generations were able to talk to the younger people about the life as it used to be lived.
Not only am I talking my son about all the things that we used to do, through your project, he can actually see it now. It's going to make a huge difference for him connecting to my stories that I'm talking about, that I experience, and have him make that little bit more connection in which you're building that culture a little bit back up.
Derek told me, directly relating to the pictures, what he saw and how he remembered so clearly the chores and the things that he helped with when he was a boy with his grandparents and his parents. And it struck me that he was very interested in passing this along to his children, like many were.
I don't think people really think about community memory and what's been lost, what has changed over the years, and having that memory that goes back, that you can kind of that photograph, that picture, it could be the landscape, it could be a face that just triggers that memory of, I know this, or it reminds me of a story of my childhood or my grandparents' childhood. And you see that a lot out here on the reservation, where you meet with people and you're talking about something completely different, and then the next thing you know, they're telling you about their childhood or their great-grandparents, how they lived and how they traveled across the landscape. And it's just information pouring over you. And, for the longest time in the back of my mind, I've always toyed with this idea of that was Eden. That was the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden exists in every community, and that's that memory loss. And that's really truly what we're losing, is that Garden of Eden. As I've taken my kids back to Tucson, where I grew up, and I've showed them areas where I played as a kid that are now developed. And that's my Garden of Eden lost.